Welcome back to the People in Production podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Nelson, focusing on mid-level leadership development in the manufacturing industry. Today, we continue our conversation with Ian Reel of Kaw Valley Precision for part 2 of his remarkable journey. In this episode, Ian shares how he purchased his first CNC machine with zero experience and built a thriving operation with 14 machines and 10 employees. It's a story of calculated risk and strategic growth. What's particularly fascinating is how Ian's company found significant growth during 2020, a time when many businesses were fighting to survive. We'll unpack the leadership decisions behind that success. We'll also explore the systems he developed to remove himself from day-to-day operations and how he balances the demands of a growing business with family life. Ian also reveals what he believes is manufacturing's biggest threat today, and it might surprise you. Let's dive back into Ian's journey of building a manufacturing business from the ground up. Ian, we are back at it. We had some great conversations in part 1 about your story through teaching and starting into offering a product that turned into a production company. But let's talk about that journey of when you bought your first machine and how it took off, and we'll get a picture of what your company looks like now. So continue your story of your journey of when you bought that first machine. Is this machine sitting in your garage at this point, or what does it look like for you?
So the first machine was not sitting in my garage.
Okay.
I actually had a small, commercial location that I was renting from another business owner in town. It was about 1,500 square feet, so 1,500 square feet, essentially a large garage, but had industrial power and that sort of thing. And that was where a lot of the fulfillment stuff was going on for the other employees prior to getting the CNC machine.
Okay.
And so that was kind of a pivotal point as well about, hey, can I put in an industrial machine in here? And the landlord was like, absolutely, you can. Let's do it. Let's go for it. It took time to research builders, to find the correct machine, to ultimately get paired up with the correct company that was able to take a novice under their wing and have the resources available to me and a place where I could ask silly questions and not be, feel like that I couldn't get somewhere.
So was your manufacturer one of your leading education points, or was there another resource that you could go to for education?
So it was not the manufacturer, the original manufacturer. They were making those on the parts that I was buying on a completely different machine that I ended up buying. Okay. Due to I needed a one size fits all machine, and so it led me to a little bit larger form factor machine. And for your listeners that would want to know what I got a twin spindle, twin turret, Y-axis lathe with bar feeder, high pressure coolant. The whole shebang as a first machine. So, an 8-axis machine is what I cut my teeth on. And that was really interesting conversations with other machine tool builders when they were asking, what's your experience in CNC? And I said, well, I don't have any. And they go, well, we're not going to sell you a machine. So the company that ended up working with me and really just treating me really, really well for a new person was Machine Tool Specialties out of Oklahoma. And matter of fact, they're members of the NTMA as well. So I see them frequently at events. And those guys, class act people, nothing bad to say about their business.
That's amazing. So this was in 2017?
2017. Yep. Okay. The first machine in 2017. And then with their help, with their guidance, they were able to take the machine into their floor, help spec out some tools and prove out some programs. And then they brought me down to Tulsa, showed me how to run the machine on a program that they had written for me, and essentially turnkeyed it for the bread and butter part that was needed for it to run. And
Okay.
then through just networking and asking a lot of questions and tooling reps coming through the shop, started to meet and learn from other individuals in the manufacturing area just locally. And for whatever reason, they treated me really well, and very blessed with the information they were able to share.
So from the time that you plug in your machine in your 1,500 square foot shop,
Mm-hmm.
time that you are fully providing all of your products in-house, how big of a gap was that transition?
Ooh, actual time, or how long did it feel? It felt like 100 years.
Yeah.
Actual time may have. I mean, it was making decent parts within the first 3-4 weeks of being on the floor, but it was a turnkey, part. But I was still learning how to run the tools, still learning how to get tool life, just all the stuff you continually learn in a shop, and paying a lot of stupid tax. I didn't know what I didn't know, and really just trying to learn and fail forward. And there was a lot of failure. Luckily, there was nothing that was detrimental to the machine. I didn't really damage it much. I mean, I've crashed it, but it wasn't anything that was, machine ending or life ending for that machine. So that's been good. And then just continued to design parts and prototype and work and work and work at it.
So at this point, you've got 2 fulfillment people. You're
Mhm.
running the machine. Was your wife helping with the company at all, or was she responsible for her stuff and you were running this on your own?
Yeah, no, she wasn't. She wasn't much in the day-to-day operation of the business, so she would still work her full-time job, and then we wouldn't blend much of that. I think for our sanity. Um, so yeah, that's how things were. She wasn't in the business on a day-to-day basis.
So when was your next hire and what was the role you hired? Because right now you're the operator,
Right.
flawed as you might be, uh,
Hmm.
operating at this point, but what did it look like to grow at this point to add additional team members?
Yeah. So really, what I ended up doing was, before adding additional team members, I ended up adding some more equipment. So then I added a second machine in that small 1,500 square foot facility, uh, and was able to still crank more volume out of there. And had some part time people that would sprinkle in and would help us when things got busy. So I had an old roommate of mine that was coming in and helping with fulfillment, QC of parts, bagging parts, whatever, bagging and tagging stuff. And really, I think the transition really switched from when I got out of that 1,500 square foot facility and ended up purchasing the building I'm in now, just a little over 14,000 square feet. So it's still a small building in comparison to some of the other shops.
Sure.
But on that day, I delivered a third machine. So I added a machine, moved, and did all that, and was still the sole operator, machine operator. So I was running three machines. And then 2020 is when I saw a tremendous amount of growth. In contrary to a lot of people, but 2020 was really, really a big year for me, and really had to work on replicating myself within the business.
Yep.
So replicating myself on what I was doing on the machines, I just couldn't get all the setups done. I just couldn't make good parts all the time when I was trying to set up a machine. So some of the spindles would be off, not making parts because they needed to be checked or whatever. So I found an operator, and lucky enough happened to be an ex-student of mine, uh, and was able to talk to him. And I said, "You're a machinist? Like, you're doing this as a trade?" He's like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Well, why don't you come talk to me? Maybe we could work together." And so he ended up coming, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna treat you like I would myself. Like, I'm not gonna hide anything from you. I'm gonna show you everything. I'm gonna teach you everything I've learned. Like, I don't know if I do it right, but this is a way. If you've got any ideas, let me know. I'm here to learn too. Let's be a student of the profession and get after it. And then
I want to circle back to one thing that you said that I think is important. And my a recent podcast we did with Brandon Worrell, he was talking through the lens of the company he was going to buy, what he was looking for. And you bring up another point. When you are so entwined with your company that it can't operate without you, your company doesn't have a sell value, because the only way it's worth something to someone else is if you come with the buy. And then why would you buy the company if you're going to, or why would you sell the company if you're going to do the same work and turn it over to someone else? Some people might have a reason for that, but you make a very important distinction that for your company to have a worth in terms of a sale value, you've got to disengage your role from the company needing you to exist. And so
Mhm.
for pointing that out, because I think a lot of people miss that point. They think, hey, we're X amount of dollars profitable, but if you're not paying yourself for the role that you play in addition to the profitability, then you're actually, the company's still revolving around you, and you've got to figure out how to disengage for it to be of value.
Well, 100%. And there was a certain level of tribal knowledge that was locked up in my brain. And when you bring an employee on, they're going to try and do right by the company and try and do right by what you've asked them to do. But if all the information and everything that they're asked to do is locked up in the owner's brain or in this key employee's brain, how do you move forward? So there was a huge growth curve for me on becoming more organized, documenting things better. What is a good part? What is a bad part? What does that look like? And really trying to communicate to employees, how to be successful. So as the machine shop has continued to grow, we've continued to add machines. You add on ERP systems, you add on systems and structures on how to track good product, how to document when products go wrong, how to make things correctly, and just what that looks like, and to continue to replicate yourself and, as you say, almost disengage yourself from the day-to-day operations so you can be more at the 30 or 40,000 foot view and make sure that everybody in this team and everybody in this organization has the tools they need to be successful.
Yeah. And again, you worked your network of relationships to find that right hire as well, when you realized you had a former student that was in the industry, and that
Right.
was important to reach out to your who's to find the right who.
Right. And just asking questions. They're like, well, how's work going? And I said, well, man, I could use some help. And then people start recommending. And
Yeah.
then, you just follow through and ask some questions. And sure
So
enough.
when you and I talked before, you actually said a big reason you joined NTMA was because you didn't have any knowledge of the industry, and you gave an interesting dynamic of what it was like to go from a teacher who had a community around you down the hallway to
Right.
being a guy running his own shop. Can you share some of those thoughts with us?
Sure. Yeah. So as I've continued to grow the business, I find my role changing. You go from, a designer, a visionary, to then being a technical person on the machines, to now having employees, having more business dynamic issues, or just problems that have to be solved. And I find myself having a skill set that is not necessarily good at that, or needs work. And as a teacher, when you're faced with a problem, there's always a built-in professional network. So if you have a trouble student or you have a trouble thing that you're trying to figure out in the classroom, you walk down the hallway and ask that veteran, hey, what do you do in a situation like this? And there's bunches of people to ask and bounce ideas off of. And in business, I found that was not as easy. And so I started looking for an association that maybe had like-minded business individuals that were going through the same thing I'm going through or trying to learn about, or ones that have already been there, and guess what? You go to an NTMA event, you start talking to people, and you find out that your problems really aren't that big in the grand scheme of things. And then a lot of people have been through it or in it right now, and you can bounce ideas off of each other. And that's been really important for me on the information I'm wanting to get at this stage in my life and business.
And they give you hope that you can survive this, because sometimes being a small business owner, you feel like, is this a bigger problem than we can get past? And it's just nice to hear other people share, oh yeah, you can navigate this, and share their journey.
Yeah, and if you're in an echo chamber, I mean, that's pretty bad. But if you just ask the right questions, or just be vulnerable enough to ask some questions, and listen, people will steer you in the right direction usually.
Yeah. Ian, what's your company look like today? How many employees do you have? Machines? What are you comfortable sharing about what you look
Yes.
like?
So including part-timers, we have 10 employees. So 7 full-time, and happy to have them. I mean, wouldn't be able to do it without them. I'm in a situation where if I need to take a few days off, I know that parts will still be made, good parts will still be made, parts will still be shipped, that sort of thing. We're up to 14 machines. So 14 machines in a relatively short amount of time. Swiss machining, so I have a lot of Swiss style machines, but also have some traditional mills. But in general, when people ask what I make, I say, well, I make small parts, roughly the size of a Kleenex box and smaller, and things as smaller than your pinky fingernail if you want to get down to really tiny stuff. So,
And you had initially started this just to make your own products, but
correct.
then you realized, hey, we have capacity. We can
Mhm.
provide services to other people. And I think you said earlier, automotive industry, food service industry,
Right.
self-defense. I mean, so you actually found an avenue where, hey, there's other demands, and you were able to diversify your services a little bit more to help create opportunity for your team. Is that correct?
Correct. Mhm. To help bridge those gaps. You know, every industry has a roller coaster. The firearms industry is no different. It's kind of peak and valley and really bubbly. And to kind of flatten some of that out, especially once you have other people that entrust that you're steering the ship correctly, you want to make sure that you have a stable environment for them.
Yeah, love it. I also notice on your website you've got a careers page that people can go to, and
Mhm.
just say, "Hey, here's where we start. Here's the type of roles that we uh, hire into and stuff like that." And I just really love your candidness of saying, if you're looking for something, this is where you'd start, and here's the opportunity to work up. Do you get many people responding to those?
I do. So it's pretty interesting whenever we do a campaign to get some employees. I typically have the opposite problem. I have a lot of resumes I have to go through, and usually I shut the open jobs down within a week to 2 weeks. The last one I opened up for a warehouse personnel hire. I had 70 applicants in about 3 or 4 days. So it's can be pretty intense trying to get through that.
What
One
have
would
you
ask, well,
learned
how
about
many of
hiring
them?
in that process?
What's that?
What have you learned about hiring in that process?
Oh, that I'm not good at it. And if you think you're good at it, you're not. Um, there's something to learn every time. So I have to get more reps at hiring. So
Yeah.
I'm just not
You
perfect
know,
at it for sure.
one of the things that I do for teams, there are different tools that you can use, and I use something called Acumax Index, and it helps to align people with their natural wiring with job opportunities, and does this profile of a person fit the profile of the role that you're trying to play? And there's a different personality for a long run CNC operator versus short run CNC operators. And there's different things like that, that when you're really looking to make that important hire, a lot of times we're just doing crapshoots saying, hope this is the right guy. I liked him. But what you don't understand at the moment is, are they going to be able to do that role long term? Or are they going to do it for weeks and realize they're miserable and move on? And there's a lot of opportunities to be really intentional about that. And the interview and the conversation has to be more than about their skill sets. It needs to be how they function and how they operate in a community, how their mindset is around work and stuff like that. And so there are some things that we can do to really create some efficiency in that, so that you feel less of a risk in the hire because you know that there's alignment with what you're hiring them for. So love the fact that you're continuing to grow, and you're right. It takes reps. Those first handful of hires, especially if you do it only once every 4, 5, 6 months, man, it's hard to. And we usually wait to hire until we're at a crisis point, and then we have to hire, and we can't take our time. And that's the hard part about that process, isn't it?
It is. I mean, nailed it.
Yep. So, man, Ian, your transparency has been great. I love the authenticity of the conversation where you've just said, hey, here's the journey we've been through, and some things I've learned, some things I'm still learning. And I just really, really appreciate that. What would you say to the person who's thinking about starting their own shop?
Starting their own shop. Well, everybody's journey is different. Mine was based around a product, and that's where I felt comfortable. So I think any journey needs to be met with calculation, and then if you overcalculate, you won't ever do it. So there's nothing wrong with investing in yourself, giving it a chance, and trying, and that's exactly what I did. So I took some risk, invested in myself, and definitely look back not regretting any of that.
That's awesome, man. What a great encouragement. Hey, one thing I love to do is what I call the speed feed round. And so I'm going to throw some questions at you. You just answer your first thoughts on it. And for those that don't know, Ian and I are both in the Kansas City area. And people may have heard the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. I don't know if you're a Chiefs fan or not, or if you even care. But if you were given 2 Super Bowl tickets, who would you take to the Super Bowl with you?
2 Super Bowl tickets. I would take my wife and probably my office manager, CEO, which happens to be my wife's sister.
Okay, very fun, very fun.
So
you guys are going to have some fun in New Orleans if that's the case, right?
we would.
Very good. So those early morning shifts, I know you guys don't necessarily start at 5 a.m., but on those early mornings, what are you going to have in your hand for keeping yourself awake? Is it going to be coffee, energy drinks, soda? What do you consume?
So I am a lover of caffeine. Coffee is a go-to, and then unfortunately, I happen to also like those energy drinks. So any of the caffeinated energy drinks that are 0 calorie or 0 sugar, yeah, that's kind of my jam.
Gotcha. Very good. And what, in your opinion, what's the greatest threat to manufacturing right now?
I think the greatest threat to manufacturing is that young people don't know the trade exists. Mm-hmm. And once they start to figure it out, and the speed in which this industry is changing, I'm fearful that the young people coming up will think that it's too daunting of a task to learn it. And I think that is, just very detrimental.
Yeah, really appreciate that. What is one tool in your leadership tool belt you couldn't live without?
Kathy.
My
front office.
Who?
Yeah.
I love it. And she's your what?
She's my sister-in-law.
Okay, so she's your office manager or CEO, did you say?
Oh yeah, basically she runs the place essentially. So if I'm gone, she's our easy button with pretty much anything operations. But to answer the question a little more seriously, probably the one thing I think I'm really good at is a no flinch rule. So I don't flinch when I'm given the information. So I hate that people try to deliver me information or curate the way they deliver me information based on how they think I would react to it. I'm more of a give me the information, let me handle my emotions, and I'll keep those in check. I need to know the truth and give me the information raw and straight to the point. So
That's great. Hey, and I have to say this, you kind of said the first one was joking, but I'm going to actually lean into that because, and I think I may have mentioned this a few episodes ago. There's a book called Who Not How by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And the whole principle of that book is you got to quit thinking about how to get something done and find the who can get it done for you. And that's how you multiply your business. And similar principles can be found in 10X and some of those other writings and stuff. But your first answer made a lot of sense too. So good stuff. Hey, last thing. We've learned a little bit about your business and stuff. Is there anything that's just a passion point of yours that if we were able to start the whole episode over, you'd be like, man, I wish we could talk about this because we're so passionate about it?
Gosh. No, not really. But one thing I will say that is something that I try to work on is I try not to take stress home. And the way I'm able to do that is my kids are still young. So when I show up at home, they still greet me at the pickup door. They think I'm a superhero. And I shed all that stress and, try to make sure that I'm still a superhero for them. And I don't ever want to bring that work stress home. I don't want them to know whether or not I had a good day or a bad day, type of deal. I'm always just dad, their superhero. And that's a point of pride, I guess, that I just try to keep that normal for them. So burdens of business brought home. So
that's awesome, dude. This has been such a great interview. Thank you so much for making yourself available for it. And I think you've encouraged a lot of people in this, and keep doing what you're doing and keep growing a great company, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
It's been a pleasure. Take care. All right. That's a wrap. Our inspiring two-part conversation with Ian Reel of Kaw Valley Precision. I hope you've gained valuable insights from Ian's journey building a successful manufacturing business through the calculated risks and strategic thinking. Before we go, I want to make sure you know about an exciting opportunity coming up. The St. Louis and Kansas City chapters of the National Tooling and Machining Association are hosting a collaborative event on April 24th and 25th in the Kansas City area. This is a perfect chance to network with manufacturing leaders like Ian and learn from others who are facing similar challenges in our industry. These connections can be invaluable, as Ian mentioned, when discussing how professional networks helped him to overcome the isolation of entrepreneurship. Registration is required to attend. To secure your spot, please contact the director of your local NTMA chapter, whether that's St. Louis or Kansas City. They'll have all the details you need to participate in this valuable networking opportunity. If you found today's episode valuable, please leave a comment letting Ian know what you appreciated about his insights. Your feedback means a lot and helps us bring more content to you that you want to hear. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We want to keep you in the loop whenever we have new posts. Thanks for listening to the People in Production podcast. We are so honored to be a part of your journey.